Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is dedicated for the speedy and complete refuah shlema of Rabbani Chana Farchi Chana Bat Simefega, and as well dedicated for a speedy and complete refuah shlema for Eliyahu Shimon Ben Mazah Fortuné. And as well, my friends, Breakfast in the Class is sponsored by Emmanuel Zara, dedicated in honor of Daniel Arbus for his contributions to Israel and Jewish causes. Thank you, my good friend. And of course, as well as a Mazal Tov and a Mabruk today for Ronnie Dagan and Jack Haber, who Be'ezrat Hashem will be married a little bit later today. B'sha'a tova u'mutzlacha. We should be zochet to see many semachot in the near future, as well to the Chira and Saida families on the engagement of their children, and the and the birth as well of a baby boy in the Brit Milah, to the Haddad and Smeki families. B'sha'a tova u'mutzlachat. Let us begin. Says the pasuk, tzedek tzedek tirdof. A person needs to chase after tzedek, to chase after justice. In order that you should merit to inherit the earth, the land that Hashem is promising you. The Hida Kadosh writes on this pasuk, he writes something unbelievable. He says that when a person is chasing justice. Now, normally we translate that pasuk as a person who is chasing justice in a court system, as a judge. They're chasing justice as a Shoftim v'Shoterim, as a police officer, like we started the pesukim of our parasha. However, says the Chida, there are other ways also to choose and to chase tzedek, which means righteousness. And he categorizes the pasuk as someone who's chasing tzedek in the world, chasing to righteousness in this world. Says the Chida, tzarich adam lirdof. A person must run, lizakot harabim, to bring a zechut to the masses, kemo sherodef ahar hayav. Just like he runs after his own life. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, says the Chida, is referring also to a person who runs after just living and righteousness in this world. And I want to express what this is referring to. It says the Gemara says, Zacha, if a person merits mizakeh harabim, to bring a zechut to the masses, notel chelko v'chelek chavero began Eden. He receives his own portion in Gan Eden, but also the fortune of his friend in Gan Eden as well. He merits not only his own portion, but also the portion of someone else. And that's what the pasuk is saying over here. If you do that, tzedek tzedek tirdof, you get not only your own, but you also get the other person's portion. Leman tichevi yarashta, you'll be able to inherit not Eretz, the land over here, but also in Gan Eden, the eternal land of Gan Eden. Now I want to talk a little bit with you today about the advantage and the importance of being mizakeh harabim. But before we do that, I want to define, what does it mean, mizakeh harabim? To bring a zechut to the masses. Most people, they think mizakeh harabim means a person who starts up an entire outreach network. Rabbi Noach Weinberg started the entirety of Esha Torah worldwide. You think about the Rebbe from Lubavitch started up all of the Chabad and everything that they do in every city, in every country in the world. You think of that as a mizakeh harabim. But the truth is, that's not really what zikui harabim means. Zikui harabim means a person who brings a zechut to the masses, however small that zechut is. I'll give you an example. Let's say someone figures out a way to be able to create a new approach to studying Torah. Rav Meir Shapiro didn't introduce Gemara. He didn't make up the Talmud. What did he do? He had an idea. What was his idea? That everyone should study on the same day, the same page, all Jews around the world, and that became known as Daf Yomi. Hundreds of thousands of people studying Daf Yomi for decades since Rav Meir Shapiro instituted Daf Yomi. All of that zechut belongs to whom? Rav Meir Shapiro. Of course, the person who's studying gets his own zechut. But who started this wave? It was a person who had an idea. A person has to chase these ideas. The person that decided, Bikur Cholim, Sephardi Bikur Cholim, we're going to start this organization. That person gets the merit of every action of chesed that happens through the organization, even after he dies. It is the law, it is a halacha, it is an idea of exponential returns. I'll give you an example for this. Let's say someone makes an investment on in a business. So there's two ways a person could get money back from that business. One way is the person says, I'll pay you back with interest. So let's say, as an example, the guy lends $5,000 to a business. And the guy in the business says, I'm going to lend you, I'm going to return that money. Of course, we're not allowed as Jews to lend money to Jewish people. You're not allowed to lend money to another Jewish person with interest. It's considered like family. You shouldn't be taking advantage of someone in your family. A Jewish person to a non-Jewish person is allowed to lend money with interest. And if you think that that's anti-Semitic, a non-Jewish person is allowed to lend money to a Jewish person with interest. Right? The idea is that someone who's in your family, you don't take advantage of them because they need it alone. And the Jewish people is literally the children of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, is family. We have to go above and beyond and do something which is actually allowed in any other portion of the world. Anyone else is allowed to do it, but you're not supposed to do that to your family. And the idea of Jewish people is supposed to feel like they're your brother and they're your sister. So let's say you lend someone $5,000 for their business. They want to pay it back with interest. So let's say they give you 50% interest on the loan. How much money did you make? $2,500 extra. Hazak ubaruch. Beautiful. How about if they give you 100% interest? You made $5,000. How about if they give you 1,000% interest? That's where we're heading with Biden. What are we up to, guys? What are we up to? What's 1,000% interest? You made 10 times the amount of the money. How much money did you? How much profit? $50,000 you made on your $5,000. My friend, that pales in comparison to equity in the company. Let's say someone gives you, instead of 50%, 100%, 1,000%, they give you 10% of their company. Very quickly, you might make $50,000. But you know what happens after you make $50,000? You're still making money. Next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that. The profits that a person gets when they own equity in something means is much higher than a percentage of interest that they make back on their principal money that they invested. Is that clear? My friends, when a person does a mitzvah, you earn benefit from that mitzvah. Tremendous. But when a person is mizakeh harabim, that action that you do for 5 people, for 10 people, for 100 people, for 1,000 people, you could never live the lives of 1,000 people. You don't have the capacity to have the earning power of 1,000 people. So say the Sefarim, suddenly we look at this idea of mizakeh harabim and you realize how crazy you have to be. I had an example I just want to share with you. Happened Motzei Shabbat a few weeks ago. I mentioned this once in one of my other classes. There was a guy coming around the Beit Knesset. He said to the rabbi, Rabbi, do you want to go up to the, for Hatarat Nedarim? The Syrian community, we do Hatarat Nedarim a few times before Yom Kippur. So everyone, if you had a neder, you go up to the Beit Din and you ask them to undo your neder. So that way you did not commit the sin of Hatarat Nedarim, of breaking a neder. My friends, guy comes around, he says, Rabbi, he tells me, would you mind going up in Hathaway? Could you go up to be one of the minyan, to undo the nedarim of the community? I said, sure. Then he asked this kid next to me, a yeshiva boy, with a hat and jacket, he says, would you mind also, you're a religious boy, would you mind going up to be part of the Beit Din? The boy says, no, thank you very much, no thank you. Anyway, he says, why, we need you? The guy says, no, thank you, I'd rather not. He walks away. I said to this young man, young man, quietly, I didn't say it loud. I said, I think you might have made a mistake just now. He said, what do you mean? I said, why don't you want to go up? He says, I'm worried if I go up and I'm part of the Beit Din, then we'll finish doing Hatarat Nedarim, and then what will happen? Everyone's going to leave, and then we're not going to have a minyan for me to do Hatarat Nedarim. So I'm nervous, I'm not going to get Hatarat Nedarim, so therefore I don't want to be part of the 10. I said to him, I'm also nervous about that, but I'm still on the Beit Din. You know why? He said, why? I said, if I do Hatarat Nedarim, how many mitzvot do I get? How many people are here now? 300 people? How many people are going to get here between now and when we start Hatarat Nedarim? Another 150 people? So instead of one mitzvah of Hatarat Nedarim, I would have gotten 450 mitzvot of Hatarat Nedarim. I said, your math is off. All of a sudden the guy's like, you think I could still get back on? He's running, chasing the guy down. That's tzedek tirdof. Recognizing that when you do mitzvot yourself, you're limited, you're finite. But when you start teaching other people, when you start helping other people get more connected to Torah and mitzvot, then they learn, and their children learn, and their children's children learn. And who does that accrue to? Those merits. That comes back to you. I want to read you the line from the Chovat HaLevavot. This piece is the Otzrot Tininei Torah. It is magnificent. He says in Shar Ahava, I want to read this to you. Ra'ui lecha achi ladat, my brother, you need to know. Even if you became the most perfect you could ever become in the act of self-perfection. That's how perfect you came. You came so close to God. Even if you're going to be almost like a prophet. In the wonderful midot of the Nevi'im. In all of their unbelievable minhagim, their character traits. In their love of God, in their exalted character. They do not come close to the merits of to someone who teaches someone the right way to behave and to act. Someone who straightens the path of the wicked to God's work. Because his merits are redoubled and multiplied for the rest of their life. You work on yourself, you only have a few merits. You work on the public, my friends, those merits are unbelievable. She'en chet, says the Gemara, ba'al yado. A person is made a promise by God that sin does not come to him when he works on other people. Now, my friends, listen to this. And I think that this is incredibly important. Says Rav Steinman, and Rav Steinman is not the first person to say this. Better to be a person that helps others grow close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ma'asher lihiyot b'madregat navi. Better to even be than on a person who would become to the level of a navi. And where is the proof for this, my friends? The Khatam Sofer, in his introduction to Pituchei Chotam, writes that the pasuk tells us by Avraham Avinu. It says that Avraham Avinu, when Hashem decides to tell him about Sodom, he says a language which you do not find in any other Navi. God says, "Hamechaseh ani me Abraham." Am I going to cover over from Abraham? Asher ani. Am I going to cover over from Abraham what I'm going to do? I have to tell him what's going to happen in Sodom. So God reveals to Abraham in prophecy what he's going to do in Sodom. Why? Because Hamechaseh ani me Abraham. Should I cover over from Abraham? It's the Khatam Sofer. If you want to make, if Abraham is a Navi, then the reason why he sees in prophecy is because he's a Navi. Not because, am I going to cover from Abraham what I'm going to do? What is God saying? You don't find that anywhere else. Says the Khatam Sofer, jaw dropping. He says Abraham was not on the level to receive Nevuah. Why? Because he was so busy working with everybody, bringing them under the wings of the Shekhinah, giving them food, teaching them Birkat HaMazon, teaching them to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What happens? He's working with this element of people that are Avodah Zarah. He didn't have the time to prepare himself, to refine himself to the level of a Navi. But God says, Hamechaseh ani me Abraham. Could I cover over Abraham from receiving the level of prophecy that he would have received if he was not busy working on my children? If he was not doing my work, what would he be doing? Refining himself. So am I going to punish him because he's doing that to withhold prophecy from him? If anyone but the Khatam Sofer said this, I would chop the guy's head off. But the Khatam Sofer says it explicitly. Not only that, my friends, our rabbis tell us that because of that, Avraham receives a level of beracha and a level of prophecy that is unparalleled in the Torah. He receives the brit the covenant between God and the Jewish people. Avraham Avinu receives the prophecy of all of the beracha that we find in the beginning of Parashat Lech Lecha. How is this possible? If he doesn't get this level, the answer is everything that, listen to this carefully, my friends, everything that would ever come to this world that was spiritual, every mitzvah that any person would ever do, Jewish or non-Jewish, who gets the credit for that mitzvah? Avraham Avinu. Why? Because we know that Avraham is called Avraham HaIvri. He's Avraham the Hebrew. But Ivri also means Be'ever HaNahar, on the other side of the river. Where everybody else at his time was idol worshipping, what is Avraham teaching? Monotheism. He's the only one out there telling everybody that they're living their life wrong. That means that without Avraham Avinu, there would be no monotheism. Without Avraham Avinu, there would be no teaching of ethics, of morality. Every Christian, every Muslim, where does that come from? These are religions that are born, they are called Abrahamic religions. So any mitzvah, any morality, any ethics that comes out in this world originates where? With Avraham Avinu. Is there anyone that could ever have more merit than him? Even if the person never met Abraham, even if the person is not from his family, even if the person is not from his students, but they're his student. My friends, I want to share with you something incredible. Our Chachamim tell us about a person who's mizakeh harabim, who brings merit to the public, to the masses. The Pasuk tells us, the Gemara tells us that this person, I'm going to read you the line, Mechila. Rashi says in Masechet Avot, what does it mean, en chet ba liyado? That the person does not have, he gets merited to be protected from sin. Shelo yihiyehu begehinam. This person won't ever go to Gehinam. Listen carefully to the words of Rashi. Why? Shelo yiyehu begehinam, that he should not be in Gehinam, v'talmido began Eden, and his student in Gan Eden. If his student merits Gan Eden, how can he be in Gehinam? So therefore, a person who's mizakeh rabim, and he casts his net wide instead of narrow and deep. He casts his net wide even if it's shallow. This person receives unbelievable zechut. Now, my friends, what does the idea, please, if everyone could put their phone on silent, mechila. My friends, I want to share this because I think this is important. You know the guy that made that little card? The card for the Kohanim, Mizakeh Harabim. You know the guy that puts Modim de Rabbanan, that sign in every shul? What is his name? Musayov. You see it in shuls around the world? Mizakeh Harabim. You know the guy, my friends, that decides to put out a Sidur? Mizakeh Harabim. The guy who translates the Chumash into English? Mizakeh Harabim. The guy who sees the guy translating to English and says, you know what? We need this in Spanish, in French, in Portuguese. Each one. Mizakeh Harabim, Mizakeh Harabim, Mizakeh Harabim. You gave money to tzedakah. Hazaku Baruch, one mitzvah. You put on a chat, guys, I'm raising money for tzedakah. Anyone want to help? Give me a call. Mizakeh Harabim. We have to stop thinking about me and start thinking about we. There's a beautiful chidush from the Chidushei Harim. He says that when the Jewish people received the Torah, what did they say? They said, we will do and we will listen. Ask the Chidushei Harim a beautiful question. Who said we're going to do and we're going to listen? Who said? Did Moshe say Na'aseh v'nishma? No. Who said Na'aseh v'nishma? Anyone know? Every Jew. Let me ask you a question. If every Jew said, we'll do and we will listen, why didn't every Jew say instead, I will do and I will? If one person's answering on behalf of everybody, he should say, Na'aseh v'nishma. But if everyone's answering the question, what should they have said? E'eseh ve'eshma, I will do, and I will listen. And says the Chidushei Harim. You know why we said we'll do and we will listen? Because every person at Har Sinai did not only accept on themselves the mitzvot and the Torah, they accepted on themselves that they should also look out for their next door neighbors fulfilling of all the mitzvot in the Torah. You know when you have that person in the family who comes late to everything? And if you don't think that there's anyone in the family, then it's you. My friends, your parents call you and they say, we're having this event, Hachnasat Sefer Torah, everyone needs to be on time. And then they look at you, the late guy, and they're like, Dave, on time does not mean SY time 4 hours late. On time means, if we say 11, it means 11. What does he say? I'll be there, Ma. I'll be there. And your parents look at him again. And then what do? They look at you and they say, could you make sure? And what do you say? Ma, don't worry. We'll be there at 11. Na'aseh v'nishma was that the Jewish people accepted that it's not that I'm going to do Torah mitzvot. It's that they accepted that we, all of us, are going to do Torah and mitzvot. Rack your brains, my friends. Ask yourself, we're heading towards Ramim Noraim, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Who doesn't need a couple extra merits? Who doesn't need good health? Who doesn't need parnasah? Who doesn't need a shidduch or children or good children? We all need things. Everybody. In order to get those things, you got to pay. How do you pay? Merits. Zechuyot. So ask yourself a question. Do you want to multiply times 1? Or do you want to multiply exponentially? A multiplier effect. If you see someone in the shul, doesn't know which way to hold the book, you run over to the guy and you show him what page. My friends, you helped him get comfortable in the Beit Knesset. The guy now feels, you know what, I could come here, even though I don't know how to pray, someone's going to show me what page we're on. What happens? He comes another time. That second time he comes, he gets a mitzvah, but you know who else gets a mitzvah? You do. Now the guy comes a third time and a fourth time and a fifth time. You're going to get to Shamayim and they're going to say, you have under your belt, when you're 100 after 120, 50 million tefillot. And you're thinking to yourself, that's impossible. There's not that many prayers in my lifetime. And they're like, you remember that guy? I remember that guy. Well, all of his prayers for the rest of his life, those also come back to you. Because you know what? You made him feel comfortable that day in the shul. The guy's like, okay, fine, but 50 million tefillot is not mine and his. And in Shamayim, they're like, oh, but the guy, Baruch Hashem, he had 10 children. Each one of those 10 kids had 8 grandkids. All those kids grew up in shul. They taught their kids to go to shul. And you know what? One of the grandkids became a big speaker in the Jewish community. He inspired millions of people, inspired thousands of people who had tens of thousands of grandchildren, who had millions of prayers. Prayers, people that you never met, people that you never know. Shiurim about tefillah on a level that you yourself don't know. They're like, yeah, the guy taught everybody an idea in Modim, changed their prayers. I don't know that idea myself. Yeah, but it's still in your bank account. I want to tell you something. Some mitzvah, I say, you don't do this mitzvah, okay? You're not such a nice person. You're not such a tzaddik if you're not honest in business. You're not just such a tzaddik if you tell Lashon Hara about people and you ruin their lives. You're not such a righteous person. You know what I tell you? If you don't do the mitzvah of Zikui Harabim, you're not such a smart person. I always thought to myself, what do we say at the end of the prayers? Sammy's favorite line in the whole world? Rabbi Hananya ben Akasha Omer. Rabbi Hananya ben Akasha Omer. Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zakot Israel. Hashem wanted to give merit to the Jewish people. Lefikach hirba lehem Torah mitzvot. Therefore He gave them many Torah and many mitzvot. My friends, everybody asks the same question. If God wanted to give merit to the Jewish people, so what do? I'll give you an example. You have your son comes to work. You want him to be able to be successful. You want to pay him, but you can't pay him for doing nothing. So what do you tell him? Here, do this job, and then I'm allowed to put you on the books, and then I can pay you a salary. How many jobs? You give him one little job. If that's the point, you just want to pay him, you give him the minimum amount of work, right? רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל. לפיכך, הרבה להם. If you give them many jobs, then they have many chances of failing. Give them one job, the likelihood is they'll get it done. So what should Rabbi Chananya ben Akasha said instead? Hashem wanted to give merit to the Jewish people. Lefikach mi'et lahem Torah mitzvot. He gave them few Torah mitzvot. My friends, I want to suggest that maybe this is the idea. The idea, my friends, is very simple. Every Jewish person wants a thing to do where they could inspire the masses. And if there's already a card for Kaddish, transliterated into English for the guy who can't read, and there's already someone whose job it is to announce the pages in shul, and there's already someone who's giving away tzitzit for free if you're willing to put them on once a week, this guy, let me know if you want. There's already a guy who will buy you tefillin if you need tefillin and you're willing to put them on every day. There's already a guy who does that. There's a guy who sponsors shatnez in the month of Elul in our community. There's already a guy who does that. What are you going to do? Where's your lane? Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu lezakot et Yisrael. God wanted everyone to have this ability to be able to have mega zechuyot. He wanted you to be able to slide that switch where you don't only win the lottery, but every lottery number that you get is multiplied again and again and again. God wanted everyone to have that ability. Therefore, lefikach hirba lehem Torah mitzvot. Everybody's got something that they could do that could bring zechut to the masses. You hear about divorces, think to yourself, what could I do to fix this? What could I do to improve the Jewish people? What could I do? Maybe I could sponsor someone to put together a curriculum that young couples should learn how to stay married. Maybe I could figure out something to help people who don't know how to speak Hebrew learn how to read Hebrew. I could sponsor some classes. I could introduce people to the people. Today it's so easy. You have a class, you think someone's going to be inspired, all you have to do, forward. You share the class, you mizakeh harabim. You put who wants to give tzedakah on your family chat, mizakeh harabim. My friends, we have in front of us this unbelievable opportunity for growth. And all that it takes is a little bit of creativity and thought. Ask yourself, what would I have loved to have at a difficult Jewish moment? Ask yourself when you're looking around the shul, what's happening here? I'll never forget there was a guy who came one day to say Kaddish. Someone in the back helped him put on his tefillin. The guy comes now all the time. There's a fellow who comes to shul now all the time. You know why? Because he came Shabbat once and someone poured him a drink, an arak, and said, I poured this just for you, welcome. Unbelievable. So easy, so simple, only if you keep your eyes open. So my friends, each and every one of us has that opportunity. Keep your eyes open and Be'ezrat Hashem you will grow from strength to strength. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen.